Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and today we're going to announce the All-Star starters and bench players, or reserves, I guess, for my Baseball Maelstrom POPs League. So, just a little background for those who are maybe new here. My Payoff Pitch League, my POPs League, is in season 2. I play a third of a season, so 54 games is what I play, and 4 teams American League, 4 teams National League. 3 of those teams in each league are made up of Hall of Famers, and 1 team is made up of great players not in the Hall of Fame. And they play an equal number of home and away games, equal number of games against the other 3 teams in their league. No interleague play, but there's a World Series at the end. So this is the second season I've done, so it's been a lot of fun, and we are at the halfway point of the season. So 26 games, I believe, have been played. 28. There are 28 games in the second half, and so it is time to announce the All-Star starters and reserves. I did this last year, and it was a lot of fun, or last season, I should say, which was a couple years ago, and it was a lot of fun. I actually allowed people to vote, so thank you for those of you who voted for these All-Stars. And I just took the top to determine the starters. I took the top vote getters in each category, each offensive category. We are using the designated hitter, and then I chose all the reserves, and I chose the pitching staffs for both teams. So, with all that said, we'll start with the National League, which is the visitors. We're playing in Detroit this year at Tiger Stadium, and the National League will be visitors. And starting at catcher for the National League will be Buster Posey. Buster Posey, I'm going to be flipping back and forth here. There we go. Buster Posey is hitting 275 so far this year with a 305 on base percentage, 385 slugging. He's only hit 1 homer, but he's been a pretty solid at a lighter hitting position in the National League. And I should mention that the National League averages and offense is a lot lower than the American League offense. And likewise, the pitching in the National League is a lot better than the pitching in the American League if you just look at straight stats. So you may think 275 isn't really anything spectacular, but actually in the National League it's pretty good. So that is our starting catcher for the National League. Starting first baseman will be Jeff Bagwell. Jeff Bagwell is a monster this year. He's hitting 324, 8 homers, leading the National League in homers, 364 on base, 637 slugging. He's just tearing it up, and so it's no wonder that he is the starting first baseman for the National League. I will mention this is his second All-Star appearance as well, so he played in the last All-Star game as well. Starting at second base will be Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson is hitting 281. He hasn't hit a homer yet this season, but he's been very productive for LA. 326 on base, 340 on base, 326 slugging, so a little bit lower slugging there, but he is hitting 281 and is the best hitting second baseman in the National League. Heading over to shortstop, we have Arky Vaughan. And Arky Vaughan is hitting 309. He does have 1 homer. He has a 397 on base percentage, of 436 slugging. So again, kind of a lighter hitting position, but 309 is pretty good for batting average. And he leads in OPS of all the shortstops in the National League. And he will be the starter this year for the National League team at short. Heading over to third base, we have... and it's Arky Vaughan's second appearance as well. I should mention that. Heading over to third base, we have none other than Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt is hitting just 208, 290 on base, 469 slugging. So again, very, very low batting average, but 7 home runs. So he is still slugging away and hitting the ball out of the park, which is what his team needs. He plays for St. Louis, and he may not have the best batting average of any of the National League third basemen, but he has by far the most homers. Heading to the outfield now with left fielder Tim Raines. Tim Raines is the starting left fielder, playing for Houston this year, and he's hitting 340, usually in the leadoff spot. 340, just one homer, 402 on base though, 425 slugging. He's walking a lot, getting on base, hitting for good average, and of course, 6 stolen bases so far in the season as well. Center fielder is the Negro Leaguer Oscar Charleston. Oscar Charleston playing for Houston this year, and he's hit 355 with 366 on base, 527 slugging. He only has 2 homers, but he's hit 5 triples and driven in 20 runs as well. So definitely an offensive powerhouse there in center field for the National League. In right field, we have none other than Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa is on the non-Hall of Fame team, of course. Sosa's just hitting 240, but he has hit 5 homers. He's driven in 21 runs, 295 on base, so a little bit lower on base percentage, but a 481 slugging. Leading all right fielders in terms of OPS, 775 OPS, so still a pretty good hitter there in Sammy Sosa. And then DHing for the National League will be Willie Stargell. Willie Stargell. Stargell is hitting 279, 7 homers, driven in 16. He has a 310 on base, 706 slugging, though. Slugging is crazy. One of the few players with an OPS over 1, the other being Jeff Bagwell, I believe. The other starter being Jeff Bagwell. And he's just been tearing it up. So now what about the bench players or the reserves? Well, I have a reserve at each position. That's what I chose to do. And then we have 9 pitchers. I should say, before we get to the reserves, that the starting pitcher for the National League will be Sandy Koufax. Koufax, I believe, this is off the top of my head. We'll have to check this out. But I believe he's 6-1, has the second best ERA, leads the league in strikeouts, and he's been pretty unhittable this year so far. So Sandy Koufax will be leading, or starting the game, I should say, for the National League. So the reserves for the National League will be catching Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza catching is a reserve catcher in the National League. First base, Todd Helton. Second base, Rogers Hornsby. Shortstop, Dave Bancroft. Third base, Albert Pujols. Left fielder, Ralph Kiner. Center fielder, Turkey Stearns, another Negro League guy. Right fielder, Tony Gwynn. And DHing, the reserve DH will be Barry Bonds. Now for the rest of the pitching staff in the National League, we have Juan Marichal, Don Sutton, Steve Carlton, Jerry Koosman, William Bell, another Negro League guy, Kent Tekulve, Lee Smith, and the closer for the National League this year is Bruce Sutter to round out the National League. A couple of guys that got left off the roster, maybe a little controversial. Hoyt Wilhelm, in limited time, he hasn't allowed an earned run yet, but he only has, he hasn't pitched enough innings really to qualify him, and but he was left off. And then Fergie Jenkins. Fergie Jenkins has 2 starts. The rest of the time he's been in relief, but he's 4-0 combined with a 2.25 ERA, very, very good, but did not make the cut to be on the National League roster. So now let's talk about the American League. The American League. And let's look at the American League starters for the All-Star game. And starting at catcher, he was also the starting catcher last year, Mickey Cochran. Mickey Cochran's hitting 352 with a 426 on base, a 556 slugging. A great offensive catcher. Again, keep in mind that the American League offense is much higher than the National League, so these numbers are going to seem a lot better than the National League numbers did. But yeah, Mickey Cochran will be starting the starting catcher for the American League. Starting first baseman will be Dick Allen. Dick Allen started the season with the non-Hall of Fame Detroit Rockets. Of course, once he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, he joined the New York Swats, so got drafted to one of the Hall of Fame teams. Combined, he's hit 311 so far with a 397 on base and a 736 slugging. He leads all hitters with 13 home runs this year, and he's driven in 32 runs. Which is also tops in the entire league. So he'll be the starting first baseman for the American League. Second baseman will be Nellie Fox. Starting second baseman will be Nellie Fox. And Nellie Fox is hitting 370 with a 400 on base, 478 slugging. So no homers. He's only had a couple of extra base hits, but he gets on base, he hits for average, and he's the starting second baseman. The starting shortstop will be Lou Boudreau. Lou Boudreau hitting 324 with a 388 on base, 528 slugging. He has 5 homers, which is kind of surprising, but he has 5 homers, which is crazy. And, he walks a lot, gets on base, and he's been a great setup guy for Oakland this year, and he'll be the starting shortstop. Over at third base, we have George Brett. George Brett will be the starting third baseman. Brett hitting 415. Yes, 415. 443 on base, 723 slugging. On top of that high average, he's hit 5 homers, and he has an OPS of 166. So one of the few players, again, with an OPS over 1. Crazy offensive powerhouse here at third base. In left field, we have the splendid splinter, Ted Williams. Ted Williams, a little bit lower batting average for him, 321, 385 on base, 538 slugging. He only has 4 homers. He hasn't quite walked as much as he did last season, but still a great offensive player, and no surprise that he is the starting left fielder. In center, great leadoff man in Kenny Lofton. Kenny Lofton's hitting 333 with a 394 on base, of 474 slugging. Again, he just gets on base all the time. He has 10 stolen bases, leads the league in stolen bases, and I expect he'll be the leadoff hitter for the American League. In right field, we have another player that started the season on the Detroit Rockets, the non-Hall of Fame team, and got drafted to one of the Hall of Fame teams, and that's Ichiro Suzuki. Ichiro has been just a great slap hitter, I guess. 350 batting average, 374 on base, slugging at 430. He hasn't hit a home run, not too surprising. He has 8 stolen bases though, so he's been provided lots of speed, gets on base a lot, and has been great offensively, even after the transition. And finally, starting DH will be Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig, 326 batting average, 400 on base, 685 slugging. Just an all-around great hitter, and he'll be starting for the American League. The starting pitcher for the American League is 6-0, I believe, and that's Bert Blyleven. Bert Blyleven is probably the best American League pitcher. That's why he's starting the game, and he knows how to win. He's leads the Boston, who is the top team in the American League right now. He's given them wins when they've needed them, and has been very consistent in that. Now for the reserves. So the reserves in the American League, we have reserve catcher Josh Gibson, great Negro League powerhouse Josh Gibson. Reserve first baseman Frank Thomas. Second baseman Eddie Collins. Shortstop Alex Rodriguez. Third baseman Paul Molitor. Left fielder Babe Ruth. Yeah, Ruth is a reserve. Center fielder Joe DiMaggio. Right fielder Harold Baines. And DH Ty Cobb. One may wonder, why is Ty Cobb the reserve DH and not like a center fielder or playing somewhere there? Well, he plays for New York, And New York's starting center fielder is Joe DiMaggio, who is a better fielder. So that's why he's the reserve DH. The rest of the pitchers to round out the pitching staff for the American League, we have Gaylord Perry, Pedro Martinez, CC Sabathia, Jim Cott, Mariano Rivera, Satchel Paige, Tom Henke, and closing for the American League this year will be Raleigh Fingers. So that rounds out the American League. A couple of notable players that were left off the roster. Jimmy Fox. Jimmy Fox leads, has 8 home runs, is tied for first in RBI, but once again, he gets stuck behind, or I should say he gets stuck because there are other players that are just better, especially at that position. So Fox is a first baseman, and the other first basemen in the American League are Dick Allen and Frank Thomas, who are both a couple of the best hitters in the American League. So he just didn't have a spot to get him on the roster. Likewise, another person left off the roster, Mark McGwire, a 969 OPS, but at a position that's just stacked, he could not make it onto the roster. So there you have it. Those are the starters and reserves for the American and the National League. I do plan on doing 2 things. One, I'm going to have a home run derby again. So I did that the first season, and I'm going to do it again, have a home run derby in the second season. So that'll probably be the next video you'll see here. And I have a way of doing that in Payoff Pitch. So if you're curious about that, I haven't seen anybody else do a home run derby. So maybe there is somebody out there, but as far as I know, I may be the only one doing a home run derby and videoing it. So be looking for that. And then, of course, we'll have the All-Star Game, which I am going to record and put up so that you can watch the excitement unfold in the All-Star Game. And then we'll be ready for the second half of the season, and anything can happen. But once again, thank you so much for those of you who voted for the All-Stars. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you found that interesting to kind of look through and see some of the stats so far when you have all of these great players playing against one another. It's been very interesting to see how things have panned out. Both seasons, the American League has been offense heavy, and the National League has been pitching heavy, both seasons. So very, very interesting to see that play out as well. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Consider clicking the like button. Subscribe if you want to make sure not to miss anything. And until next time, have a great evening.